Excuse me. Good evening and welcome to the August 16th, 2017 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. Before we get underway, I'd like to ask everybody to please silence their devices. Also, anybody in the public who would like to make some comments, we encourage you to do that. But we need you to come up to the lectern, identify yourself, and speak into the microphone because we are being televised. So, first order of business is approval of minutes. First we have, it says August 3rd, but I believe that was August 2nd, 2017. So that's one correction. Or actually, I'm not sure if the minutes are in need of correction for that. Has anyone read the minutes?
This was the last week? Was that that 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, but it was our last meeting.
Oh,
J.D., could I see them for just a second?
well, I read them when they came, when they were emailed to us, and I didn't see any issues.
All right.
So
Would you move acceptance?
I'll move acceptance.
I'd second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. And the minutes of August 4th, 2017, this was just to vote the one item. It was a quorum of 4 who attended. It was the Friday. Well, you weren't.
I'd move acceptance. I've reviewed them.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Steve. Do you have a second?
Well, I didn't see them, but
I wasn't on the forum.
but if you,
I reviewed it.
I was on the
right.
quorum. I can second them.
all right.
Good.
I did read them. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. All right, next, we have a request for a continuance under a notice of intent. Stephen and Catherine Cameron, 176 White Highway, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, the existing dwelling and construct a single-family house with an attached garage, deck, porches, patios, install native tree and shrub plantings, AC units, generator, dry wells, rinse station, water and gas services, paved driveway, rebuild existing steps in kind, remove shed, and expand shed footprint and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes,
Jen.
Madam Chairman, the applicant has requested, the applicant's representative has requested a continuance to our next available hearing, which is August 30th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? So moved. All right. Now, requests for determination of applicability. Sippawisset Place Homeowners Association and Residents, care of Nancy McDonald, Association President, Lot 0, Sippawisset Road, map 3502-001-000, 43 Sippawisset Road, 42, 43, 50, 54, 58, 60, 64, 68, 72, and 86 Loop Road, Lot 22 Loop Road, map 3502-004-022, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to continue Phragmites control maintenance through approved herbicide methods by Fallopian Ecological Services, along with annual inspection reports and work notification.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state in the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any comment from the board? Any comment from the public?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
This is one area where the removal and then the recovery of the natural marsh has been really spectacular.
That's good to hear. All right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Next, Diane Matthews, 93 Lucerne Avenue, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to install bell guard pavers over the existing footprint of the concrete patios. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, we're recommending a -2 under the state in the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
Jamie,
Jamie.
any comment from the board? Comment from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Christy Baxter, 8 Settlers Path, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to raise RAZE, the existing dwelling, and construct a new 2-bedroom, single-family house with attached deck, a porte cochere, install utilities, dry wells, parking area, reconstruct and relocate the playhouse and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
We are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second. Any comments or questions from the board? From the public? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Don Moroz, 45 Morris Street, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to remove invasive plants, install native trees and shrubs, and to vista prune to come into compliance with DEP 25-3347.
-2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not
So
confirmed.
moved.
Second.
Any comments from the board? From the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Charles Russell, 44 Morris Street, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to upgrade the existing cesspools and install a Title V sewage disposal system, disturbed areas to be loaned and seeded.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me. Any question from the board?
No.
Any comment from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Robert Richards, 45 Little Neck Bars Road, West Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to chink voids within existing riprap, all work by hand across existing path and stairs.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board, from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. All right, requests for hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth
Madam Chairman, I just have to run out of the
All right. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. All right, so first we have Stephen and Catherine Cameron at 176 Wacoit Highway, and that has just been continued to August 30th. So moving on, Thomas Sweeney and Abigail Westifer, Lot 1, Dale Drive, map 1502-028-001, North Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to construct and maintain a residential driveway on a vacant lot, including all drainage, utility installation, paving, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good evening, Mike.
Lots of ticks out there.
Oh, what?
A long time. Mike.
No, that's my hearing, huh?
Oh, that's the cover story.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Oh, who do I give these to?
Me, I thank you.
You gave me 2 of these. Don't be sorry. Thank you.
I glued them.
Did you get these for the
Here you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What I do is, when I take that.
Mike, it didn't let me see it. Just wasn't sure you had the vote.
My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and professional land surveyor. I work for Holmes and McGrath. We filed a notice of intent for Thomas Sweeney and his sister Abigail Westerberg. This is a vacant lot at the end of Dale Drive. Dale Drive is it's a road that leaves Quaker Road just south of Old Silver Beach. And this particular lot is a vacant lot. You recently approved the development, you recently approved a driveway on the adjacent lot, which is Lot 2. In that, you found that the history of this, that you decided that this coastal bank was, well, the bottom line is you waived the Zone A buffer. I gave you not only a copy of the colored plan, but I also gave you a copy of a revised map from the National Heritage and Endangered Species Program. When we first filed this, it was within rare and endangered species habitat. And we filed with them. They are returning the check because the site is no longer within the rare and endangered species habitat. The resource areas on the plan, how much about the tax? We have a vernal pool at the base of the hill, and there's a small isolated freshwater wetland around it. There's the coastal bank. This is the small estuary that crosses Quaker Road. It splits Old Silver Beach. This goes up into the basically a whole series of parcels that have been acquired by the town, or the 300 community, or Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries. The history of this project is that Mr. Sweeney and his sister could have gotten a total of 9 lots. They did a cluster subdivision with only 2. They sold about half of the project to the Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries, and then they donated a portion. If you remember, that was, these last 2 lots are the only thing left that's not either owned by conservation or by Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries. This road was approved for an order of conditions. If you've gone out there, it hasn't been used much because it's a gravel surface, but there's a lot of weeds in it. And the proposal is that we're going to construct a driveway to reach this lot. Your jurisdiction is this line, but because of the change from the rare and endangered species habitat, this buffer zone is much smaller, and that instead of being 100 feet, it now would be 50 feet. And the difference is that if you have different resource area buffer A's and B's, the A's vary with the environmental quality of the protected wetland. You gave very high quality to coastal bays that have rare and endangered species habitat or a wetland at the base. So, but this has now been changed, and it's been changed since we filed the notice. So, as far as what the actual work is, the only thing we're trying to do is construct an access to this last remaining vacant lot. Normally, I would not have shown you the house and the approximate septic system, but we needed to show that to get the rare and endangered species habitat sign-off, which we no longer need. As far as the driveway, it can be steep, but we did put in a catch basin and leaching pit at the base. The catch basin actually is it's a double grate and it leads back into a leaching pit. So that has been sized for all of this development. There's drainage that's installed in here that accounted for some of this already, so under the subdivision regulations, but since this is a significant alteration, we thought it best to design a drainage system so that this flow coming down will be captured and not affect or cause erosion into the gravel turnaround. So I believe that this meets your performance standards, and I think if for the people that were here for the adjacent lot, I think you remember that you decided that because of the unique location of this, that this is a suitable approval. The only thing we're actually doing now that is basically building the driveway. Are there any specific questions I can answer concerning the design?
Thanks, Mike. Jennifer?
No questions. One correction, Mike, you said that that line, the buffer zone A that's shown on your original plan, is no longer the commission's jurisdiction. It's incorrect. Still within their jurisdiction, it's just their zone B.
Oh,
Yeah. I know.
I meant to say that the A and B add up to 100 feet, and so you still have
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
Yeah,
It's
so
just that-
it did change. I talked to Jeff Johnson this afternoon. It did change. I noticed that. So I did ask Jeff Mike, if you would just submit a revised plan by the end of the week, just showing the correct A and B buffer, so we have the correct plan in the file, that would be great. Unless you already gave that and I didn't notice that.
No, I've not brought in a revised plan, and can I have to Monday?
Yeah, that's fine.
Happy weekend.
You probably have to go next one.
No, Monday's good.
All right. Mark? Steve?
My question is, the area that the driveway accesses whatever the gravel area is, it's beyond the end of the Dale Drive, but it's not part of this parcel? And speaking, if you come from lot 28,
The property lines are here, there's a roadway that's in here. And what's happened, instead of paving it, they applied for a waiver, and the planning board let them put in crushed stone. So if you go out there, it's completely overgrown with weeds because the weeds have colonized the crushed stone. But this crushed stone, I believe.
oh, I was there, but whose property is that? You're saying that's part of Dale Drive? Or it's,
When someone creates a road that's private, the fee in the road is owned by the abutters, obviously subject to everybody's rights to pass and repass. So this person will own a share of that road.
We permitted that in the past.
Yeah. Maybe 6
Steve?
months ago.
No,
a year ago.
I think.
no, I was
Steve
here
said
for that.
The
The
road.
abutter
Yeah.
has questioned the maintenance of the roadway
Well,
and suggested that the crushed stone weren't the best alternative coming into the fairly steep driveway. And their concern is runoff, even with your catchment basin system, which I'm sure will work fine.
Well, it's probably not clear, but the intent is it be paved all the way to here because I'm aware that it might jump, and I wanted to make sure that it didn't erode the crushed stone. So the pavement actually extends out to this line. So
Right,
It's
I
not
see that.
labeled clear, but that's the
No,
intent
it's-
of the plan.
It's okay.
Right, it is addressed in the narrative, just talks about paving because of the steepness of the grade,
Right.
so.
No, an abutter's concern was that this
The runoff.
isn't being maintained now, obviously. And who is responsible for ongoing maintenance will be the two lot owners?
Yes, the
Okay.
adjoining lot has been sold.
Yes, I understand that.
And so this is under agreement, and it will be sold. And so when these people build, they will have to maintain the road. they'll have to clean out the weeds or mow the road.
Right. Okay.
Okay, not now. After the board is finished. Jamie? Betsy? Maury?
There is a letter, Jen, from Natural Heritage stating that that did change?
Yes.
Okay, that's number one. And the only, I think it's a great project. It's a beautiful spot, and they certainly could have really developed it heavily, so I'm glad to see it's only going to be 2 homes. One question I do have, Mike, we'll probably condition it, but because of the steep slope, are you going to pave the driveway, like put a base coat down for construction, or is it going to just be a gravel, just be dirt until they're all done?
This is a very steep driveway. Approved contractor would pave it.
Okay, they'd put like the base coat down. All right, because I was going to say that we should have movable core logs, to stop any erosion in case you weren't doing that. But if the catch basin and the driveway are going to be paved to collect any of the runoff and then maintained and cleaned out after construction.
So you want a base coat prior to construction?
Yeah. If not, then at least some kind of erosion control, because that's really steep. And then I think,
you would obviously put the erosion control along that, where that.
I would say at the end of every, not every night, but if there's going to be any sign of rain, then it should have something put up there, just so it doesn't wash down. And you know that the catch basin will fill up with all the silt during construction, so it'll just have to be cleaned out after the construction is done and the site stabilized. And other than that, I think it's a good project.
All set?
Thank you.
Peter?
No questions?
All right. Kevin?
No.
Mike, I have one comment. It's, getting to my picky side, I guess, but since there's no longer a need because of the endangered species for depicting the house and the garage, and since you're going to be revising the plan for the record anyway, would you mind removing the house and the garage from the plan for purposes of this record?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. So, you okay with that, Jen? Or maybe,
I would want the driveway extended at least till that grade's changing, just so we know what's coming down there.
okay, perhaps identifying it in a different way that doesn't make it sound like it's part of this project.
You don't have to put the proposed house or the proposed garage, Mike, but I'd like you to keep the proposed paved driveway.
Oh, sure, that is the project.
Yeah.
Yes. I'd have to show the entire driveway.
Yeah,
definitely.
I know the pitch that's coming in.
Yeah, definitely the driveway should be kept on the plan. Okay,
You'd like me to make a motion to close the hearing?
like somebody to make a motion.
Second.
All right, now then, any more comment from the board?
James.
Ma'am, this is the time for comments from the public. Please come up to the podium.
Oh, okay.
You must use the microphone and tell us who you are.
Okay, my name is Professor Alicia Soderberg, and I own 204 Wilcoy Highway. And so I'm just interested in what's going on. And I would like to understand like the delineation between the two properties and how it will affect my property. That's all.
We are not hearing the Wilcoy Highway project now. Do you
It's
realize?
a different one.
Yes, that's been continued till August 30th. At the request of the applicant, we are on an entirely different project over in North Falmouth.
Oh, I got a letter in the mail. Okay, I apologize.
That's
It's
okay.
I thought it was tonight.
It was tonight.
It was tonight, but
Okay.
they asked if they could postpone, so.
Okay.
So you will
Sorry.
not, it's okay, don't worry about it.
It's
Ma'am,
rescheduled for August 30th.
Ma'am, you will not get another letter letting you know about the August 30th date, so please write that down if you'd like
Got
to
it.
attend, okay?
Okay.
Don't feel bad, we just found out too, after driving to East Falmouth to visit the site. It's lovely where you live.
Yes. That's not,
Thank you.
I think we should
You're
keep
very
it
welcome.
on these two.
anyone else who
Very
would like to
convenient.
make a comment? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. All right. Next project, Charles and Jane Bagley, 197 T-Ticket Ave, East Falmouth, Massachusetts. for permission to raise RACE, the existing dwelling, and construct a single-family house with a porch, deck, install a new septic tank and D-box, pavers, utilities, dry wells, crushed seashell driveway, native tree and shrub mitigation plantings, remove the existing shed and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, Mike's still doing that, may I ask a question?
It's
tonight.
procedural. Oh,
No, it's
so
not
Mike-
procedural.
Okay, well, anyway,
Mike, I thought you weren't gonna come anymore here.
yeah,
Are
there's,
you here because you like him?
there's that.
He heard I was there.
Oh, you came because Lori was here tonight.
Barbara Frappier came back a few times after her threatened departure. Jen, did you want to say anything before Mike?
I
No,
have
I
lots
have the
of
same
time.
question Betsy did.
By the way, it's National Joke Day.
Please.
But not now.
Oh, I had a good joke about a wetland scientist. My name is Michael McGrath. I am the president of Homes of McGrath. We filed the notice of intent for Mr. and Mrs. Bagley to tear down their existing house and build a new house. And I've given you all a colored plan that looks like that. There's an existing house that's dotted right into here. There are wetland resources on site, a salt marsh, a velocity zone. There's a coastal bank. There's a Falmouth wetland regulation buffer zone A and another Falmouth wetland regulation zone B. There's also a zone A that's connected with the salt marsh, but as we're used to doing, we only show the most land use ones. In any case, what the proposal is that when we tear this house down and build a new house, in order to do that, we have to we have to relocate the septic tank that's shown on the site. So the bottom line is that we are increasing the impervious areas that are within your resource area buffers. In order to do that, we have to establish what the areas are that we are disturbing, and then we have to provide mitigation plantings. So the plantings that are shown on the plan are designed to meet the criteria that is in your regulations. There's a total of 26 more square feet of impervious area in the Falmouth Wetlands Regulation Zone A, and a total of 804 more square feet in the Falmouth Wetlands Regulation Zone B. Under your criteria, we need to have 1,686 square feet of new mitigation plants, and we show 1,686 square feet of plantings. The plantings, there's the species are shown on the plan, and then we are showing you that we also have some proposed trees. We received a call today from Jennifer saying that she thinks that this should be redesigned so that there is, that it is almost all within the FWRA of the salt marsh. This is a coastal bank and a velocity zone, so I think it's appropriate that this be put in. So I met with my client, we just got this phone call this afternoon, and my client would agree to take half the plants and put them in an area like this. If you've been to the site, this is where their social areas, that's where their lawn chairs are, etc. That's where they socialize and congregate. So they'd like to keep a significant portion of this area. They're happy to put additional plants there. So I would ask the commission to let me revise the plan and submit it that takes half this here and puts it down here. So other than that, I think that this, in accordance with your practices, we have shown dry wells where no dry wells exist, and also we've shown a limit of work that protects the environment from erosion. Hopefully, I've answered all your questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mike. Jen, do you have anything more to say about that?
Yeah, the staff would like to see like, a majority of the plants put down to protect the salt marsh. That's the most critical resource area on this property, and your regulations specifically say that they should be, all the mitigation should be closest to the resource area. I understand the argument says it's a coastal bank and they're vegetating it, but that's not the critical resource area on this project. It is the salt marsh. So that and all the plantings are up and under existing tree canopy and everything else, and they won't really do well. So I would like to see the plantings moved. I understand your clients might have agreed to do half, but they've also requested to significantly enlarge the house within the commission's jurisdiction, and this is the mitigation that's required. It's not a negotiation. There are certain regulations that need to be followed, but then that will be up to the board. I'm done. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, you can.
To me, a coastal bank in a lossy zone is a significant resource. In fact, I would rate it higher than the resource area buffers. So I think that if you consider what the total picture is, it is appropriate to put some plants down at the salt marsh, but it's also appropriate to put some plants on the coastal bank in a velocity zone. So I would ask the commission to seriously consider working with the owners here.
So are you going to put the band of plants across the entire coastal bank to block the wave action from going on the property, Mike?
No,
Or are you just going to smush them off to the side?
Jen.
Smush?
Yeah.
God, I don't smush
Mike,
plants.
I don't want to,
Let's not argue.
I'm not arguing, I'm just telling you.
You have a formula. If I meet the formula,
You're not meeting
it
the formula.
shouldn't matter.
Let's see what the rest of the board, what the board
Yes,
has to say.
Actually, neither there are options. It's the option of the board to make the decision.
Yeah, that's what I said, it'll be up to the board.
Let's proceed with some order here, please. Kevin?
Sorry, Mike. I tend to agree with Jennifer. Having been to the site, it seems clear that what's of major interest here is the salt marsh.
Peter?
No questions.
Maureen?
I would have to agree with Jen. Salt marsh in the lawn, abutting it is an issue.
Anything else? Betsy?
I have two comments. The first is yes, I agree that, yes, that coastal bank in the velocity zone is important, and you have to put the coastal bank here because you need it to do the calculations, the mitigation calculations. However, the salt marsh is, all of our resources are important, but salt marsh is the most critical resource.
Which is why the buffer zone is 100.
Is 100 feet.
And did you have another comment?
No, that was it. That was my two.
Jamie?
That we have to know what this buffer zone is
Right.
for the mitigation calculation.
Jamie?
Nothing to add.
Steve?
Nothing to add?
Mark?
Did you take account of the driveway being pulled up, moved in your previous area?
I didn't, I'm sure we did because there's two people that look at these.
I was just trying to guess. It looked like it didn't get included, but I couldn't really tell. I couldn't do the scale.
The most,
Mark, only a little portion of the driveway is in that
About
outer
150
buffer
square
zone
feet.
big. I would want to know if that little bit is included in those little pavers in the front stoop is included.
Yeah, well, it just wasn't clear to me. I don't have any
Mike,
comments.
is it on your colored one?
it's shown that,
Yeah,
like,
he's-
None of the colored one.
oh,
So, Mike, it sounds to me like you might want to continue.
well, is there any way we could just move the plants and knock it back?
No.
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 Well, we'd love to see you again, Mike.
Our track record lately on letting people do that has been disappointing.
That was lucky.
Mike?
Even people from your firm.
Nonetheless,
I am all set.
Old enough to go. If it's just the plants, Mike, the 30th is, I wouldn't allow another one at this point on the 30th because, thank you, Susan. We just continued one, but if it's just moving that plant and you do follow the board's direction on that, then I think I can put you on the 30th if you promise to be brief. No wetland scientist jokes.
I'd like to hear one.
I request a continuance to August 30th without any promises.
At the request of the applicant, this is continued to August 30th.
Thank you, Mike.
second. All right, any more comments from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, all those in favor of the continuance till August 30th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike.
Oh, we did that.
Thanks, Mike.
I did. Okay, it's your turn. All right. Next, Ann Morris, 45 Quistit Avenue, Woods Hole, Massachusetts, for permission to construct a 12-foot by 12.5-foot addition, install dry wells, restore 3,600 square feet of resource area buffer by removing non-native vegetation and planting native shrub species, monitoring biannually for 2 years, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good evening, Tom.
Push pin?
Just go up and pull.
I think so.
They're brave.
Look at that, 2 thumbtacks. 4.
It's an embarrassment.
Ooh, your pictures.
It's an interesting lot.
It's got a new machine.
Golf course.
Very expensive.
Oh. Mike Pacelli brought the push pins.
Bunker is the SS design. Drawing a picture of a nice dog here you're going to pay attention to, so it makes you all happy to approve the project. Firm prepared this plan with the help of Mark Manganello of LEC, with some of the analysis of the wetland area. I can show you on this plan. Our property is right here, the existing house. And Griffin Moores have this house here, Woods Hole Golf Course is here. Isolated wetland resource area in the back corner of their property in this location. I show you this because I believe this golf course plays a role in the condition of the wetland down there, and the topography is such that water will flow downhill into there. We also have an unvegetated area, the Woods Hole Daycare Center in this location, which contributes runoff to that location also. What we have is a house that was built in 1961 or so, I believe, in this location. Property goes up from Quistit Ave, the house is at the top of the hill, the driveway, septic system is in the front yard away from the wetland, and there's a pool in the backyard here, which is shared with the golf course. Yeah, I think Mark from LEC calls it a man-made pool. And obviously, it's a natural depression, but it's ringed with stone. There is certainly man-made interference in it, and in the form and the shape of it, and also interference in that lots of invasive species were introduced. Sycamore maple, black locust in the tree canopy, and then all the usual culprits as far as shrubs and vines. The most prominent one you see down there is English ivy, and bittersweet growing around is privet, Rosa multiflora, host of others. In the backyard of the house, there's a lawn area right here, nice level lawn area, and just behind it, a concrete slab support and a deck going out over the hill. And that below that deck, there's a retaining wall that wraps around and actually forms part of the side wall of these steps here. It's a picture of that wall in the report by LEC here. This is the concrete, the edge of the deck. You see the corner of the deck here. Those stakes, drew in some black lines there, mark where the addition is proposed to be 12 feet or 12 and a half feet. And also with little L-shaped steps for access, a little deck and steps for access to the doors in there. The total addition increase in lot coverage is 189 square feet, and that, I can back up some, we're terming this an isolated freshwater wetland. There's probably always the question whether it's a vernal pool or not. It was studied 25 years ago now. Determined to not be a vernal pool at that time. I believe that certainly the conditions have not gotten better for it to become a vernal pool. The runoff from the golf course in particular, and perhaps the daycare contributes to a really eutrophic condition, which I'm sure is not conducive to fairy shrimp and some of them. If you saw it today or recently, the surface of the water is totally covered with some type of pondweed. I don't know what it is. Very small leaves. I've been there in March and April and May. There was a lot of algae growing in there. So we're terming this an isolated freshwater wetland. The B zone, or the A zone rather, is 50 feet up to this location. This corner of the addition is 59 feet from the edge of this pool. We're showing a limit of work across the end of the driveway, then up and across the lawn and the deck to establish a limit of work that's separated from the wetland habitat, the buffer. And the 2-to-1 mitigation, 189 square feet of increase in impervious surface. We need 378 square feet of plants. It was in the advertisement that we have something like 3,600 square feet. Now what they propose to do is clear out 3,600 square feet within that area, cutting out bittersweet, privet, controlling as best they can, and eliminating possible English ivy. The shrubs that we planted would be the equivalent of 378 square feet of shrubs. I have I sort of showed that for scale. Those are dots 3 feet on center, and I come up with 52 or so plants. We're proposing 54 plants, and that's what would fit into 378 square feet. And we're spreading them apart because with the English ivy there, I feel if they're planted 3 feet on center and start growing, there'll be no access between them for the Morrises to get in and do any control of the English ivy. So basically, the entire area will be improved 3,600 square feet, just with 54 plants spread out. And as we all know, if you plant them 3 feet on center, probably 3/4 of them would die by the time they get to the proper size. Anyway, and with the tree canopy in there and the tree roots, they have to be spread out to not disturb all the roots. And especially don't want to damage the roots of the locust trees. It just causes the locust to sprout more vigorously. So I want to stay away from them when possible. The dry wells, there are now downspouts, a few downspouts through here and downspouts at the driveway level, dumping onto the ground. Those will be fitted with dry wells as an improvement to the conditions in the area. This I believe is a good project. Can't take every project to heart that I represent, but this is a good one. It's a very small addition, just adding a mudroom to the kitchen in this location, no new bedrooms going on there. And you see where they're doing that and the improvement they'll make to the buffer area. I think that's a good project that deserves to be approved. I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Tom. Jen? I see you have some comments.
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't love every one of your projects.
Are you surprised?
Yeah, I'm shocked. I was out there with you, Tom. I remember the tree canopy, your clients are in the back. I remember the dog, but I can't remember if it was a black lab.
White.
or
No,
a
white
lab.
lab.
I can't see that, so. I see the stakes, I see the house, I see green, that's about it.
Jen, come on.
When Mark was out there, Mark Manganello from LEC, what time of year was he out there? I forgot.
He was there in, I'd say April and May.
So he didn't see any vertical activity, and
No.
when were we out there?
I didn't see any. I was there several times through March, April, and May. Mark was there in April
Yeah,
and May.
okay. It was pretty degraded when I was out there looking at it. I get that the area has a very large tree canopy. I get the English ivy. I understand the reasoning about spacing them further apart, but I do have concerns with just the 52 plants in that 3,600 square feet. I just think it just gives it. There's going to be a lot of disturbance around it to pull that ivy out, but it also gives it a lot of room to keep growing back. So if you could just add a few more, I'm not saying put them 3 feet in the center, that's not what I'm saying, but I think 54 plants for that large area. I don't know, I'm trying to, I can't remember, so I don't know, just think about that.
Well,
I know you have all the trees
it's
there.
a big area.
It is a big area, yeah, I remember.
It's a lot for them to take on. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think they're too far apart, we can pull the shrubs in to get the, closer spacing if that's what if you were they're too far apart.
Well, now-
We don't have to do 3,600 square feet of mitigation or improvement.
Okay. I mean, that was my only concern in this particular case. That's it.
Well, you can say what you want to say.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jen. Kevin? Peter? Maureen?
I just have one question. I think it's a good plan. Eradicating all those invasives is wonderful. My concern is that it would, I think you should try and eradicate the invasives before you plant. I really feel that, are you planning to do that?
It's in
But I mean, get rid of it, but then give it time as it comes back and keep beating it down until it's gone and then plant. And the reason for that, I just see too many people, just like you said, you know, you have some bare ground in there, and the next thing, you know, you get the fall seeds drop from the bittersweet, and we're right back to square one again. So maybe more of a management plan, then put the plants in so they will have a chance.
They're here, the
Yeah.
owners.
Okay.
I'm sure they'd be willing to.
Right. Well, that's just one of my,
spread it
I've
out,
just,
And that was sort of the intention, of it wasn't fully explained that way. They're gonna
Okay.
get the stuff out, plant the native grass, wildflower mix down there.
right.
I think
Well, the
everything-
only problem is a lot of these projects, you have 3 years to do them.
Mhm.
And sometimes it takes more than 3 years just to beat these down to bay, you know, where they're not going to be taken over constantly. So, I mean, we see it all the time. It's more involved than just going out there, and it's a lot, it's
Yeah.
almost 4,000 square feet. It's almost a quarter acre, and that's a lot of yanking, pulling, and killing. So I just think you need to think that through for,
Tenth of an acre.
tenth of an acre. It's a lot of land. At 4,000 square feet, getting rid of invasives is a lot. So, just, okay, that's all I had.
All right, thank you, Mark.
No comments.
Steve?
Yep, I agree that it's a good project. I like to see us retaining it and not tearing everything down and adding a functional addition to this property. The lot in the back, when I walked it from the country club side, it appeared that the entire pool was now on the other side of the fence, so to speak. Now, I'm not assuming that the fence is the boundary line, but, and that's probably
The ball
irrelevant.
net?
Hmm?
The ball net?
The ball
The
net,
ball-
right,
That's well up, I think, yeah, that's right up here.
right.
And that, the net
That's
is
well
up,
onto
the
their
property line is
property.
through there.
Okay.
So it is all downhill of that net, but the property line is well downhill.
All right, it looked very, very difficult to do anything. I'd hate to have to grow something back there. So that's my opinion.
Okay.
That's the source of the problem.
Yes.
Even if you deal with this tenth of an acre, you're gonna have things moving in.
Right.
From here.
Right, constant.
But
But it's not their
For a
problem.
while, the owners live here.
Yeah, and I think it's great.
I mean, it's
Just
not
a
like,
Excuse me.
You all set?
Yes,
Thank
thanks.
you. Jamie? Betsy, did you have one?
well, I just said it. Well, yeah, I haven't asked any questions yet.
No, but you can talk.
Well, because we got into
Go
a
ahead.
discussion of this. So I have to tell you, I had a big problem in my house, you know where I live, in the back with,
I'm
in the
not sure where
village.
you live.
In the village,
Oh,
in the
okay.
back with, I mean, my whole road has a problem with, well, everybody has problems with ivy.
Mhm.
And I actually had someone come out and remove it and apply something to discourage it from coming back. But once,
You're not going to name names?
no, well, I could, but I won't. I mean, they did a great job, but you still have to maintain it. I mean, I think anybody who realizes that they do anything with invasives, it's
Never,
never over.
never over.
Well, it's a retirement job.
But anyway, it's a good project. And maybe if we get a healthier area around there and we get less runoff from the neighbors, that potentially could be a wetland that could worth protecting.
Right. More than what it is now.
I just would like to make two comments. Just reinforce the point that's been made about delaying the planting until you're, you know, the invasives are fairly well under control, and that will avoid having to buy new plants and plant all over again, which I don't think anybody would enjoy. And I'm going to make a general comment. It's germane, but it's not really specific to this project. But since you brought up the point about this wetland being man-made, it's that argument's been made in a couple hearings lately, and we don't really recognize a distinction on that basis. It's more, we care about what the function of the wetland is. Not how it got there.
I know it's a natural depression, it's a natural.
Right, I understand. I'm addressing the public at large on this. Go
May I
ahead.
ask you a
Yes,
question?
certainly.
Jen, when we had the project for the steamship, for the parking lot when the ice rink was taken down, what was that wetland classified as?
That was an isolated.
Isolated wetland. Yeah. I mean, it was a depression, and that was a good place for the water from 28 to go.
Sure. And invasives.
And invasive.
Lots of invasives.
Lots of invasives. And grocery carts.
I'm tired.
And tires.
And I'll just say that I like this project too. I think it's a good project.
And I'll,
Motion to close the hearing, take another advisement.
Second.
perfect.
Second.
All right. Any comment from the public on this? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next hearing. Mark and Cynthia Albers, 0 Great Bay Street, map 46A-15-000-000B, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to install approximately 300 linear feet of fiber roll array of varying heights, provide coastal bank stabilization, invasive plant management, deposit 60 to 80 cubic yards of beach nourishment, reconstruct access stairs and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good evening, Mike. Jen, did you have anything before I turn it over to Mike here?
That's fine.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Just checking that you're still there, Mark. I'll move it down the corner.
I have a big head. I block a lot of things.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
members of the commission, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. One of the applicants, Cindy Albers, is here in the audience, the property owner at 66 Toledo, and really behind doing this coastal bank stabilization project that is on land owned by the town of Falmouth. I'm also joined by Seth Wilkinson of Wilkinson Ecological Design, who is the point man on the design of the Coralog array that we're proposing. And we're here tonight asking permission to do a project that will stabilize the coastal bank. The area of focus I have shown on this GIS map. It shows a larger area of the neighborhood. For reference, Maravista Avenue on the west, to the east is Gray Pond, and all of the intersecting roads. This project is located between Iroquois Street and Reynolds, and there's the street known as Toledo Street is here. So there's a section just south of Iroquois where we would begin, and it traverses in this direction just beyond a set of timber public access stairs to the beach. It's also just north of Reynolds Street. So there's a process to this other than the notice of intent application because the land is owned by others, in this case the town of Falmouth. And we know from a previous project and advice from your staff, Jen McKay, that before we can proceed with an application, we need to have permission to apply. So early on, we went to the Board of Selectmen and asked for permission and their support to apply for the notice of intent application to do the work. If the commissioner issues an order of conditions, we do have to go back to the selectmen. It's more of a legal matter at that point to obtain a license to do work on the land owned by the town of Falmouth. That licensing work would be handled by the law firm of Rubin and Rudman, and we would give you a copy of the license when we receive it. After we go back to the selectmen, we will provide to the selectmen when we apply for the license, if you approve it, a copy of the order of conditions. So the minutes that authorize us to proceed are attached to the notice of intent. I believe Selectman Patterson was there because he's mentioned in the minutes, and I also believe Betsy was there that night in the audience and had...
I was, but I didn't know it was this project.
And I know that because we all know Betsy's unforgettable. She was there that night.
Am I supposed to take that as a compliment?
Yes.
He's buttering you up for his next hearing.
Maybe for this one too. All right.
So here's a blow-up of the property. Again, you can see Toledo Street, Iroquois here, and Reynolds is just off the page. So this light yellow area is an eroding coastal bank. It abuts a coastal beach and then land under the ocean. There's also a flood zone that meanders along. It's a VE15 on the seaward side, and it's an X on the northern side. And there's various areas along the coastal bank that have obvious severe erosion. And the Albers have owned the property at 66 for a very long time, and they've noticed changes. In fact, if you look on the cross sections that we provided, they originally retained us to do work. I believe it was in 2008, and we did transects in 2008, and then we remeasured the transects in March of 2017. You can see a distinct difference, and the bank has eroded further and receded further towards Great Bay Street. So there's actually elements on the top of the bank, like a bench that you would, at one time, you would have sat on to view the ocean, which I would highly recommend not sitting on now to view the ocean. There's a tree here that I noticed that's even more at risk of falling than it was a couple months ago. That is right on the cusp of the top of the coastal bank. There's some other trees near the top, but not directly at the top, that if the project proceeds, would the bank would be stabilized, and hopefully those trees wouldn't be compromised. So this project is similar to other projects you've seen, using this type of soft solution armoring, kind of hybrid. There's a project further south on Great Bay that you reviewed and issued an order of conditions. That is also on land of the town of Falmouth. Ironically, it's actually on the same parcel because it's a 13-acre strip along the coastline. And we went through that same process, and the project was constructed, and it's being maintained and monitored as we speak, by Seth Wilkinson's firm. There's a set of timber access stairs that we're proposing to be the point of access to the beach. They will have to be removed. They're not in the best shape. Eventually they'd be rebuilt after the project's completed. We do have to do some moderately invasive access ramping down for a small machine to get onto the beach to do some of the work. I'm going to leave the details of all of this to Seth. I think that's a pretty general overview, and the details of the project I'm going to leave to Seth, and then we're both here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
For the record, Seth Wilkinson, Wilkinson Ecological. And I'm happy to be back here talking to you about stabilizing another section of the town's coastal bank on Great Bay. Many of you probably recall the project.
Excuse me, I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
The microphone doesn't do anything.
Oh, that's right.
It's only
Forgot
for
about
TV.
that. Thank you. So many of you will recall the project that we brought before you a little over a year ago. It was constructed about a year ago. And it was also, as Mike explained, on the town property and was installed, as I said, about last August, late August. The invasives have been managed. The site was renourished this spring and planted this spring. So it's all gone as anticipated. So far, it's been a very successful project, but it's still a young project. As a result of this, the applicants, the Albers, actually saw the project being constructed, and because they had worked with Mike previously and had mapped the erosion, which I found to be quite interesting in about 9 years, substantial short-term erosion rate, if you were to calculate that. They've seen how much worse it's gotten. The image that was handed around, I took the cue when Mike referred to that tree. At the time that we were designing the project, Mike actually figured out a way to save the tree. Unfortunately, it's eroding so quickly that we were there probably a week before filing, about a month ago, and we looked at it and we said, yeah, I think we can just barely save it. That was before that big rain event that we had. And this site, unfortunately, suffers from both toe erosion during storms and also from overland runoff. It's fairly flat at the top, but water does aggregate and cascade all over this bank. We're very comfortable with the erosion control blankets that are proposed. We've never, in almost 20 years, had an issue with erosion on even recently disturbed soils when it has a biodegradable blanket applied to it. So I'm confident that the blankets can tolerate the runoff, which the bank would naturally be subjected to. There's no direct discharges or anything like that. As I said, it's fairly flat at the top, but the bank is quite steep. And then the fiber rolls are designed to accept the energy and really to absorb the energy from storms rather than reflect it away or refract the energy as a harder structure could do. This is a completely soft alternative. The fiber rolls are proposed to get up to about elevation 11. It's important to note the landform wasn't as tall on the Great Bay project that you saw previously. We took it basically to the top of the landform. I believe that was about 7 fiber rolls high, give or take. This project is a little bit higher, but we're still staying about 4 feet below the 100-year flood, or it's now referred to as the 1% flood elevation. Oftentimes, these projects are designed right to the 1% storm, to bring the fiber rolls right to the 1% storm elevation to be able to protect in that kind of an event. We looked at the pluses and minuses of that and felt that this landform would be adequately protected in most storm events. With bringing it up to that elevation 10.5, 11, as it's proposed. So it's still not all the way up to 15, which would be closer to the top of the bank, but this is about halfway up the bank for most of it. The bank does obviously undulate in elevation. The other aspect that we identified as being contributing to the erosion, and this is sometimes a little bit of a complicated concept, but is actually the plants that are growing there. Asiatic bittersweet is very shallow-rooted plant, and it also has the ability to migrate down into the sediment as the superficial roots die, and it also is very effective, as we know, at outcompeting other plants, so you tend to not have herbaceous growth around Asiatic bittersweet, and you can sort of have these constantly downward migrating, but superficial roots. So it's kind of insidious where it can look vegetated, but actually still be actively eroding, just at a slower rate. And then of greater concern, and also unfortunately of greater representation on this bank, is the Japanese knotweed, Fallopian Tonica, which is actually adapted for it to have its roots break off. It commonly grows in its home range along riverbanks. Well, it commonly grows in New England and most of Europe and along riverbanks as well. But it's adapted to grow, and then during flood events, for fissures to form in the roots of the knotweed, for it to break off in a storm event or even a non-storm event, float down the river and then colonize vegetatively somewhere else. So it's literally a plant which wants to fall apart and wash away. And while we're not terribly concerned about roots surviving a long period in salt water, the plant does not tolerate salt water inundation for long periods of time, it still is not great for stabilizing a landform. So as part of the project, there's also a very selective treatment of the knotweed. Initially, we would just excavate away what could be excavated after treatment, and then there's actually 40 years of follow-up treatment, because that's what we found when you're injecting the stems. It's very, very selective, but it does take time because the roots are so extensive. And we're also proposing to deal with the multiflora rose and the Asiatic bittersweet also on a stem-by-stem basis throughout the project area. So we're trying to take a comprehensive approach, deal with the plants which are not native, not as valuable to habitat, and also certainly not encouraging stabilization of the landform. Reestablish it with both native shrubs and grasses and wildflowers, and then also to honor the protected interest of sediment contribution by annually reapplying sand on the base of the fibril array, so that storms could sort of naturally take it away and continue to provide sediment to the beaches and the nearshore resource areas. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the commission has.
Okay, thank you, Seth. Jen?
Seth, how are you going to vegetate the fibril roll? Can you just go over that again?
Certainly.
Are you going to take the same approach that the board had requested you take on the other Great Bay project? Or is it too steep in this area?
No, we were proposing to basically pre-vegetate the upper 5 fibrils with so you start with a lower density fibril, so they're not quite as robust, but they also tend not to get tested as regularly when they're up high like that. The higher density fibrils, which will also vegetate, but it's easier for the roots of the plants to colonize the high density fibrils at the bottom. So we should see pretty rapid colonization of the upper fibrils because they'll have plants growing in them before they even show up at the site. We start them at our native plant nursery. And then over the next few years, you should see colonization as the plants expand and then move into the lower fibrils.
What plant material are you using?
Oh, okay.
Because I remember the last time you had gone with the whole kind of herbaceous layer and the board had asked you to put more of a shrub layer in.
Sorry, I thought you were speaking specifically to the fibrils. So let me start with the fibrils and work my way up. So it would be American beachgrass and quackgrass actually grown in the fibrils. We know that they do well in that planting medium, which they don't love growing fibrils, but that's intentional. We want the roots to go down into the sediments, deep into the sediment, and help to lock everything in over time. Then above the fibrils, we would propose to put down a native seed mix of salt-tolerant herbaceous species, heavily herbaceous. And then we did take a cue from the last approval and have basically proposed the same maritime shrubs, bayberry, beach plum, and Carolina rose, which is a native rose planted in naturalized clusters, approximately 6 feet on center. We get the 6 feet on center density over the project area. We generally plant them a little bit closer to make it look a little bit more natural. But that's, if you're looking to figure out exactly how many plants, just be that 6-foot multiplier throughout the entire base of the bank.
And that's above the fibril, and you can't go any bigger than that 1 gallon pot, or?
We found that it's a pretty tough growing environment, and we've really had the best results with 1 gallon plants. Even with the irrigation, as you can see from the image, this is pretty erodible Carver Series soils. There's no topsoil left here. And the plants get established and grow really rapidly. I'm always impressed. We've got a number of images on our website in projects that are just a few years old, and the shrubs are 3, 4, 5 feet tall in a relatively short period of time. All plants spend most of their first year focusing more on the roots. Not usually a lot of growth in the first year, but it's that second, third, and fourth year they really take off. So that's the proposal.
Anything else, Jen?
No.
All right. Maureen?
I had a question. Going out to Great Bay, one of the major problems besides the toe of the bank, in storm events, it's the overwash. And I don't see anything that you're doing here for that road to stop dumping water over the bank. And I know that's not your problem, I mean, it's a town problem, but all these roads, they're all asphalt, they're just a conduit of water going down. They hit the gravel can only take so much up, and then it overwashes. And that's where most of, I mean, these big trees you're losing, it's not from wave action, it's from the top action, the erosion. So what do you have any plan for that?
So we do. It's basically an aggressive stabilization program with plants and erosion control blankets. We've had very good luck. We've never lost any sediment underneath a properly installed erosion control blanket. And these are heavy. They're completely biodegradable. But it's not just the straw, coconut, jute blankets you might see in some areas. We also put a layer of coir, which lasts closer to 2.5, sometimes even 3 years, which is plenty of time for those seeds to germinate and then grow up through it. So by aggressively colonizing the bank and also addressing the toe erosion, because I always look at these sites, which I agree with you 100%. Clearly, there's a lot of overland flow. And I think I mentioned that at the beginning of my presentation. But it's sort of a push-pull from an erosion standpoint. So during episodic events, we have the storm and the waves biting into the toe of the bank, which can pull sediment down, and then that's exacerbated. It can be chicken and egg, but it's certainly least exacerbated by the overland flow that's coming over from the upland areas. The road is now gravel, closed road, Great Bay Street. So there is the opportunity for some infiltration. We just don't have a whole heck of a lot of room to work with here in this location without really impinging on the path, which is very heavily used for walking. And so the approach was to stabilize the embankment, getting deep-rooted plants on there so they can tolerate whatever runoff is coming its way.
Coming from the top?
Coming from the top, yes.
Okay, because I didn't see any elevation changes to even make a swale to just slow it down and spread it out, or and the other site had a little more room on the top than this site, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's close on both of them.
It's
but,
close.
I think we already incorporate a lock-in trench, which is shown as small in the typical detail.
Yeah, I have, that's on a sheet.
You'll see it's just shown, it's a typical detail, so it's not shown right at the back, but we lock the blanket in. We can exaggerate that a little bit, since we're already digging a trench and then filling it back in, and leave a bit of a concave so that...
They did that out on Chappaquiddick Island, and it worked really well. So I'm glad you're doing that. That's why, like I say, if that can be improved even more, it would be helpful. Sure. You were also talking about the grasses and the wildflowers. Is their root system deep enough to hold?
Yeah, a lot of the grasses that are...
The grass is more so, I know.
Yeah, the grass is more so, and it's primarily grasses. The little blue stem in particular can exceed, a lot of these grasses migrated here post-glaciation from the Great Plains. The reason you have 10, 12, sometimes more feet of topsoil in the Great Plains is because you've got very deep-rooted warm season grasses growing there. They do take longer to grow than beach grass, which is why we incorporate beach grass. We see beach grass as sort of the initial stabilizer, and then the other ones as the long-term stabilization.
Then the last question I have is the ditch. That is the washout area. That's going to be taken care of as well? Okay.
Yes, there'll be recontouring as part of the project. Yeah.
I think it's a very positive project. Awesome.
Peter.
I have a question, general explanation. If Great Pond, and I've seen some other attempts at stabilization wash out after several years, what is different about this plan than the other washed out plans?
The primary difference specific to your question is that we use a very robust anchoring system. It's very low profile. You don't really see it. They're 1/4-inch galvanized steel aircraft cables, which are attached to these 7.5-inch anchors. But each one of those 7.5-inch anchors has 3,000 pounds of holding force. And on any given 10-foot-long fiber roll, you'll have 4 anchor points. So that translates to 24,000 pounds of holding force per fiber roll, which have plants growing in them. So the galvanized steel should last between 30 and 40 years in a marine environment like this. So they're matched to sort of, that's also the long end of the design life of this array. After that point, we're hoping the plants do the heavy lifting at that point. Hard to know where we'll be with sea level rise and a lot of other variables. But we've been seeing our earlier installations more than a decade now that have stayed covered and stayed well maintained. They're in phenomenal shape. They're not breaking down. I think a lot of contractors learned a lot of lessons in the early 2000s, and there were lots of installations where wooden stakes were used, and in very low energy areas, wooden stakes can be good, but the simple buoyancy of a floating fiber roll will usually uproot or pull up a wooden stake. It's a friction anchor, whereas this is more of a earth anchor, which has been tested heavily. We actually set the anchors with a mini excavator to make sure that they've got the proper holding strength. So it really comes down to the anchoring. We pay a lot of attention to that and keep them in place.
I was just going to remind Seth about the maintenance, follow-up maintenance. The system, and he can speak to it better than I can, if you notice a place that needs maintenance, you can, because of that system, you can go back and fix like small spots. If you keep up on those, spot checks and spot maintenance and reconnect one of these anchors instead of just once you install it and walk away, then the life is much longer.
Right, thank you.
A second question would be, I noticed sand nourishment at the toe of the structure. About how much volume would that be in the project?
Thank you. So I always feel better when the engineer estimates it than the contractor. So it's been, did you say 120 to 100 to 120 cubic yards initially to cover the fiber rolls and provide that sediment source. After that, we recommend that it's monitored every March, and then depending on what's been taken away, if any, they usually do shed a little more sediment in the first few years we've seen, even in moderate winters, because this isn't a terribly high energy environment. When you get a big storm, there's going to be a lot of energy, but when you don't, it's fairly protected. So the sediment in more moderate storms doesn't go far, so you can actually see some accretion, which is generally considered to be good. The beach is rather narrow here, and despite even a fairly significant amount of sediment.
I'm good.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Kevin?
I apologize, I am not familiar with this kind of construction. And given the slopes involved, are you confident that during construction, you're not going to have some collapse of the cliff?
Sure. No, that's an excellent question. We actually have two proprietary designs that are similar to this. The first one involves creating, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this fairly clearly and simply without a drawing, but it involves bringing lifts back into the hillside. Sort of if you see sand-filled envelopes, it's like a pancaked envelope to add some additional weight and mass to the envelopes. It's all connected through biodegradable materials. We looked at that alternative but discounted it fairly early in the process because you end up having to go a minimum of 4 feet of excavation at the toe and then work your way back. And we had concerns about potentially undermining the which is now a very, very popular path. With the proposed design, just want to give you that little bit of feedback from the design process because that's not usually clear in the hearing or the submission. This is really applied to the surface. We want to remove any sort of loose sediment which is migrated down, and there's a little bit of recontouring. We have been, as I mentioned, doing this for about 15 years, and exactly this kind of work for about 15 years, and we've never had any damage. We're very careful. I think the town would be very unhappy with us, or selectmen, if we were to compromise that path, so we'll take that very seriously. But this is a pretty superficial, if we were really excavating in, I would absolutely be concerned about that, and that's why we didn't go with that other approach. But this is really a treatment to the surface, and when we're done, the bottom of the bank looks quite similar to the way it looks. Its location relative to the waterfront, or mean high water, would be basically the same as it is now. Just sort of removing some of that sand that's eroded down to the bottom, putting the 5 rolls into naturally compacted soil, and then having a more consistent, not the compound angle that you have here, really just shaving it off the top. And we do that with an excavator with pretty good reach, so that the weight of the machine is not sitting right on the top of the bank. Those are the types of precautions that we take.
Good luck.
All set? Betsy?
I have a couple of questions, and they sort of circle around the maintenance issue. First of all, you have Great Bay as a private road, but I thought it belonged to the town.
Yeah.
That's a typo. It's public.
Should be public, okay. So, if we approve this, you're going to go back to the Board of Selectmen and ask for a license. But my question is, this is on town land. Now, it's in the best interest of the people who are going to be paying for this to make sure that this works. But the key thing to maintenance, as we know, as we've all learned over the last 15 years, is having somebody who actually does maintain it. And so I guess my question is, where's the responsibility for this gonna lie?
That's a good question, and I'm not trying to sidestep your question, but we have seen this before, and I think this is helpful, because that may be more of a legal question that I'm not sure I can answer. It would certainly be covered in the license agreement, which hasn't been drawn up with the town yet.
Well, it's something that the selectmen should be aware of, rather than just say, oh, yeah, they gave a permit for this, so we'll allow it. It's something that has to be maintained on a regular basis, and so the town has to have some sort of commitment with whoever they're, are you the applicant? Okay, so it took me a while to kind of figure out, well, who is this applicant? And the question is, are all these other people, your next door neighbors on either side, have they all agreed onto this?
We had a neighborhood meeting 6 afternoons ago. Invited everyone who was on the abutters list, and I think we maybe even had some attendees that were off the abutters list but got wind of it. I would say it was largely supportive. The only concerns were, if it's fair for me to summarize, about could this be done in a larger area, and more questions about.
Right, there was a letter. Did you get the letter that
An
we got
email.
today? An email?
But if I could just finish on the point about it's a privately proposed, the applicant's a private neighbor, and they're proposing to not only permit the project but execute the project. So they're going to make a very substantial investment in this array. And so sort of setting aside who's really on the hook for the maintenance, I can tell you across the boards, we've never had one time we had a client a long time ago walked away from maintenance, and the project's actually done better than I would have expected. But that's out of probably getting close now over 100 projects. And they're making a substantial investment, and I just couldn't see them walking away from that, because we start the education process on day one when we first meet the
Right. I understand that, but I just want to make sure from the town's point of view that this is, there's an understanding a legal understanding
Maybe a bond,
of responsibilities, or, yeah, whatever,
whatever it's.
to maintain it. Well, it's the selectmen to decide what it would be.
Yeah, I see it as much as
Yeah,
a
but we don't-
matter of ongoing permission as also, I mean, it's
Could be.
a two-way thing. But it's something that does have to be addressed at the
And-
licensing stage.
So we did get a letter, you can pick it up tomorrow? Or- Oh,
It's an email, and I printed it out. I
Oh, you
think.
printed it out, I think
Yeah.
actually, somebody printed it out for us.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the case as well, yeah.
So Mike, we'll give this to you, and it has to do with the neighbor.
I am that neighbor.
Oh, okay.
All right,
We'll let you speak in a minute,
Okay.
maybe 10 minutes.
Okay, well, I'll wait till he says something, and then I can say what I.
In reply.
In reply.
Okay. All right,
Right.
that's fine.
But I'm not done yet. I have questions about these boat drafts.
Those are existing.
They're existing?
Mhm,
Are they?
they're there.
Is there
Oh, it is.
an RDA allowing them to be there?
Can't say, not knowing. I would say no.
So maybe the neighborhood association would like to
Make those
to
legal.
work, make them legal, work with the conservation. Other neighborhood associations have worked with the conservation department to make any kind of racks and stuff legal. So you obviously live there, but I'll ask you gentlemen also to pass that act.
Anything else?
No, this is it's, and I can tell you that we have seen projects in the past not succeed because they were not maintained. But they were also not as well designed as this.
Jamie? Steve?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. On your typical fiber roll array section, you show some rolls and a couple things. One is the so-called high tenacity masking. What is that? Is that plastic?
Yeah, I believe it's polyethylene. It's the same exact material that fiber rolls come manufactured in. High density fiber rolls have to have sort of a casing. As far as like a percentage of fiber is probably around 1. I would be really surprised if it's 1 or 2%. Because fiber rolls are so dense, and they're about 98 to 99% biodegradable coconut fiber. But they have to be packed into something strong enough to hold it. And they've tried coconut fiber rope, and nothing has proved strong enough to be able to take they have to build for the factory where they're made, this jig, and they push the coconut fiber into it, and either it breaks when they fill it, or as soon as you go to pick it up, the ropes aren't strong enough. So they use this thin membrane. It's very strong, and then we extend that mesh over the array so that the anchors go through it. So there literally, a project like this would have thousands of anchor points, because I certainly would never want, and have never seen this enter the marine system, but anytime you're working near the shoreline, you want to think about aspects like that. So I'm very confident it's going to stay put. It's on the surface, so therefore it could be removed at any point if it ever became an issue. But it would literally have thousands of 3,000-pound anchors passing through it and looping through it, so it can't leave. It's also contiguous, so it's not like a piece can tear off.
So back to the point though, this is a plastic.
It is polyethylene.
Is it like an expanded metal in appearance, or is it like a solid sheet, or what?
It looks like, well, if you want to see it in place, I believe it's at the 26 at the Great Bay, the other installation at the end of Brockton, I believe, Street. And it's either a sort of a grayish color, which is the color that the fiber rolls just naturally fade into, or a more of a sandy color. We've been shifting more to the sand
But
color.
is it a sheet or is it look like
No, it
this?
looks like, yeah, grid, honeycomb grid. Yeah, they're squares actually, but they get stretched a little bit.
So it's more open than closed?
Yeah, I think they're 2 by 2 inch openings, and that's important because small openings, can be a hazard to wildlife. The early erosion control blankets all had like the monofilament mesh in them. It was definitely a
It wasn't
hazard.
like the small grids?
No, I don't like them either. But the big, I've never seen an issue. I've never seen an animal trapped in, or remnants of an animal trapped in that. It's all held very tight to the fiber roll, so it's not loose. It can't come away. But it's a good question.
Now, in your notes for this little sketch on the right-hand side, you say, I don't know, 2 to 4 inches of cover over fiber rolls. That's sand or something?
Yes, at the top, it gets thicker as it goes down.
Just at the top?
Up to the top of the array, so.
So it gets thicker as it goes down? I see
The sand cover would be about 2 to 4 inches there, and then as it goes closer to the beach, it's thicker, just gravity
I
primarily.
guess I wonder about, you and I, at another meeting here,
Oh,
talked
that's
about
right.
this before, when it was a 1 to 1.5. Now you're squeezing it up a little bit, because there's not, I guess, so much room to build out. But that's certainly steeper than the annual repose of sand, so it's not going to stay covered if the sand gets washed out at the bottom. It's just going to all slump down, and the whole thing will be open, exposed.
So it's actually, the last Great Bay project was 1-to-1. We'd steepened it up because we were very close to the road on that project. Mike was able to find a slope angle that's actually less shallow, so the fiber rolls themselves are at 1.5 to 1, which is significantly shallower. And then the sand nourishment itself, because it's not over all of them, we can take advantage of the geometry coming out onto the beach, and that's actually specified at a 2 to 1.
This drawing says 1 1/4 to 1. All the cross sections, all the transects.
Oh, I'm looking at I'm reading right
It
off
says
of
the sand is 2
sand.
to 1 initially, but of course that washes out.
And then it would be replaced at the same 2 to 1.
When was
All
the
the
other
sections
one?
I'm looking at are saying sand nourishment 2 to 1 slope.
When was the other one put in? That was-
In about a year ago. Yep, about a year.
Yeah, so we don't really know.
Well, it came through winter. There was a little bit of renourishment, not much, and it was when the water hit it. It didn't run off. It was clearly there was a shelf. I saw it the first time we lost a little bit. All we did was walk along the scarp, and it just naturally spread down and covered the fiber rolls again. But it's managed to hold. You could see
How
it.
long are these going to last when they're exposed?
If they're fully exposed and never covered with sand, we would probably say somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 years. There certainly are ones that have lasted longer. The design life on a maintained array like this is 20 to 30 years. That's including storm damage and things like that. So they're meant to be a long-lasting alternative.
This is not a very active area, I presume.
Inactive in which way, I'm sorry?
Ocean active.
Right, it's not going to have the same wave climate as Nantucket Sound. This is going to be more tight chop and surge. You will, in a hurricane event, we know that these south-facing estuaries can surge significantly. So
I saw a place where it was active, and within a year, the core was gone over a fair part of the rolls.
a lot of that comes into design too. If their fiber rolls are not designed to last long if they're exposed to regular tidal effects.
Sort of disappointingly short.
Yeah. We've seen tidal ranges change, and there was an inlet formed at Chatham in 2007, and after 2009, after we had almost a foot of tidal change in the Pleasant Bay estuary, we saw some projects which were at that point too close to the intertidal zone, and then you sort of have this mechanical wicking of the fiber roll array. I can assure you we've positioned this far enough back with the current tidal range that it will not be subjected to any kind of regular tidal events. Maybe the spring tide might get close to it, especially if there's a weather event, and certainly surges with weather events will come in contact with it if it washes the sand away.
Are you planning to do, it just sort of shows it at the southern end, just sort of wishing around, and it just happens that where it wishes around, all of a sudden the cliff gets to be pretty steep. And that's going to get worse because it's, the buttressing of these rolls will force a little more action on the rest of the cliff, which isn't protected. So what do we do about that?
Sure. Well, we brought this in a southerly direction primarily to protect the public stairway, the footings of the public stairway, which are now a little shaky. The whole stairway is a bit shaky. So that was sort of the reason for why we terminated the southern end. At the northern end, we're going into a natural landform. We would have to probably at least double the length of this proposal to go further south. But specifically to your question, I'm sorry, to go further south before we hit like another change in the shoreline, which is even beyond the locus here. Yeah, here it is. This is helpful. I might brought this. So in a northeast storm event, the reason we stopped it here was this actually starts to get into the lead, and the erosion starts to taper off. You also have somewhat of a salt marsh forming there. As you go this way, as you start to get, and there's a salt marsh forming, you're going to also you have elevation is lower, and so eventually you'll get into a lower, more protection to the toe of the bank. But it's already a pretty long property, and certainly if others want to extend it further south, we would support that. I think the Albers are proposing to do significantly more than their fair share. And specifically to your question about wave reflection, that is true with harder structures. The more vertical and harder a structure is, so steel or concrete, vertical is going to reflect the most wave energy. And the more you lay it back and the softer the materials get, fiber rolls are actually a little softer than a natural sand bank. So they don't tend to reflect energy. Sometimes energy can get trapped as the storm oscillates, and it just, one part of the landform is eroding and one part is not, so it can sort of entrap energy with it. I've never seen that, and I've been watching this for close to 20 years. I've never seen that extend more than about 5 feet off of the end of the array. So you might have that in some limited conditions, but you've already got pretty severe erosion along this landform in a lot of other locations. So I don't see it exacerbating in any significant way.
I think we'll have to be pretty careful about that, just because that part, according to the topo we have here, is the worst area along that whole stretch of beachfront. Right there, for some reason, the bluff is quite a bit more undercut or steeper.
Yeah, I think as you go a little further south, it gets even steeper, and that may have also been related to
not a whole lot.
Yeah.
See, where the land goes out, that sort of serves as protection itself. But
we've been finding that even over the span of a month, it's hard to keep accurate topography of these sites. So I think this is off aerial topography. I'm sorry, the plan that he's referring to. So that's likely became less accurate after the last storm. That's the kind of erosion we're seeing.
I can think the only thing to be a little careful about is when you're building this, don't get too protective of the top of the bluff at the expense of putting these things a little steeper than 1 1/4. So, if we cut it in a little bit more, it'll be easier to place it, whatever. But 1 1/4 is already, I believe, too steep, and 1 is really steep. So you just have to watch out that you don't protect the top uplands so much that during construction. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Betsy, you have something
Yeah,
else?
yeah, just 2 quick things. One is, Jen, we already have a model for how this is actually constructed, right? So when we do our order of conditions, we can follow what we did. And the other is just a question for you, Seth. How long do you think this will take?
Duration time for construction, yes. As a general rule of thumb, about 40 linear feet a day. This is about 600. Need an engineer to help me with math like that.
So
but
40
around 3 weeks. Around 3 weeks. A little time for mobilization, a little time for demobilization. So
a month.
15 days, do people get Sundays off?
yes, and occasional Saturdays. Yeah. So yeah, about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Would be the estimation.
Nice.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Peter?
One follow-on question about the maintenance. If the maintenance were not performed, what would be the result of that versus not doing anything and permitting the washout to continue?
Good question. Essentially, or ultimately, it would just slow the erosion processes down. So even if the whole thing was never maintained and eventually the fibrils all broke off and went away, we're not cutting the bank back in any appreciable way. We're giving an opportunity for plants to take hold. But with no maintenance at all, as I said, you'd expect to see about 10 to 15 years of before the fibrils, and the cables loosened up enough so that they could be dismantled in a storm. It would only be in a storm. So.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. All right.
Motion to close the hearing to
Second. All right. So now, the public, would somebody in the public, yes, please. Well, we heard from you first, sir, so why don't you come on up? Certainly get you this.
Good evening, Larry Backman, 66 Reynolds Street. I am a orthogonal neighbor to the Albers. My home is one house in on Reynolds Street right here, so Toledo Reynolds. So I am not on the water. First off, I think this is a great project. I fully support it. I think that this is, I applaud the Albers' efforts to take ownership and action on this problem. I've lived in this area since 2003, and I've seen 30 to 40 feet of erosion on Reynolds Street in that time. So it's a serious problem, so I think they are doing the right thing. And I also note that they're covering a lot more of the embankment than just their property. They're covering at least one property on either side of them. So I think they're really doing a great job there. I've reviewed the plan. I've talked to Seth a couple of times. I think it makes sense from a minimally invasive and minimally intrusive structure. It's not a hard barrier that's going to reflect. I do have two concerns, and that's the note that I dropped you this afternoon. The first one is my neighbor June Duska's house, which is this house right here on Reynolds Street. My concern is that the end of the structure, as you alluded to, stops at the staircase. If you walk that street, you'll see that her northeast corner is the closest part of her house to the road and to the embankment. I think that where the structure stops at the moment leaves that corner exposed. And if erosion occurs because it's running around the embankment by 5 feet or 10 feet, it might affect her property. I don't know that it's the Albers' responsibility to do anything about it, but I do believe that has to get monitored as a condition of this process, so that if erosion is occurring at the end of that array, that it's addressed before it becomes worse. A bigger issue that I have, and I'm bringing to your attention right now, is that there's a serious erosion problem at the end of Reynolds Street, and it's caused by town inactivity. There's been a storm drain there since I've lived there in 2003 that has eroded a notch that's taken away that 30 feet of space on Reynolds Street. So if you go down Reynolds Street, you see rocks at the very end, and then there's a drop-off, the 10-foot, 12-foot drop-off. And if you walk the beach, you'll see that it's a notch that's dug in there. I'd like to see a condition added to this project that the town engineers work with Wilkinson to minimally remediate the erosion that's occurred. The town engineer assured me as part of the Little Pond Sewer project that they had stopped the storm drain runoff that was causing the erosion. But I believe that a good thing for the town to do at this point in time would be to do remediation for the damage that was caused by inactivity over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. Our applicant, Salvers.
Jesus, Gary, this
Cindy
Cindy Albers of 66 Toledo Street, and I want to thank you as a board for considering this project. My husband and I, my children, my grandchildren, my neighbors are a bit fearful about this erosion that's going on, a bit frustrated because nothing, you know, there's been no help. So we have watched this for years and years, and we see all the moms and the children and the bikes. The dirt road is heavily trafficked. And the bank is in some places actually concave, but people from the top can't see that. And it's scary that they go so close. You know, they walk up with their dogs and everything, and it's just like at any time it really could fall in. And with that tree that's there, ready to go over, you know, when my kids are there and grandchildren are down on the water, I have the opportunity to tell them, don't walk underneath the tree because it's ready to go over, and, you know, that's not a safe situation, but there's so many people renting there, and people come from all over that aren't aware of the seriousness of the situation. They don't look up and see the tree. They don't know that the bank is concave. So safety is a huge thing for us, and I would ask you to take that into consideration with all the people that are going to and from. It's just really scary to us as a neighborhood, and it's scary to us that the people that are visiting are uneducated as to how serious this situation is with the bank falling in. So I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for giving us the privilege of entertaining this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman?
Yeah. We'll wait till this gentleman's finished.
Thank you. My name is Christopher Seipel of 56 Toledo Street, a little bit further in from the water, but I think I can speak a little bit to the neighborhood. My family has been at the neighborhood for 70 plus years now, since it was first constructed. And over that time, through generations, we've seen this embankment eroding by, as Mr. Backman said, in places 30 or 40 feet. And I would laud the Albers' efforts for stepping up to the plate here and doing something that I think we could all acknowledge is not on the town's radar, and not necessarily something that the town would be able to step up and do at this point. So I think this is a fantastic project, and it will certainly benefit the community as well as the entire town in terms of giving us yet another case study as to how to improve our coastal banks in this erosion situation. This project is a little bit different than the one further down in Great Pond, where it is a steeper angle, and I think the town should take as many opportunities as possible to gather case studies as this erosion problem continues to worsen, how we can improve that if the town itself needs to step in at some point to do something about this. In response to some of Mr. Backman's comments, the issue at the end of Reynolds, I believe, is beyond the scope of this project. And I would encourage Mr. Backman, as well as the neighbors, I share his concerns, but I think the best way to go about that would be to continue lobbying the town, approaching the Board of Selectmen, approaching the town manager's office to repair that storm drain issue and ensure that the damage that was done due to the town's negligence is repaired. I don't feel that that is in the scope of this project, or the responsibility of the Albers or the engineers working with them. So, you know, again, I just want to repeat that this is a fantastic project, and I want to thank the Albers for bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, you had something else?
I do. I wasn't going to bring this up, but the applicant's comment brought it to my attention, maybe a little more, Mike, and that's regarding these topo maps you have here. And it looks to me, I was down walking the beach, and it looked like these lines, topo lines, don't reflect the actual bluff. And I'm wondering where they came from, because this picture, there are places on the bluff where it's this, like this. It drops down 3 or 4 feet. And there doesn't seem to be any place where there's any steepness. Right in here, maybe a little bit, but nowhere does there steepness that reflects what you actually see. And that makes it sort of hard to figure out, for me, where these roads are going to end up and that sort of thing. Is this actually a surveyor's map, and was that actually measured and plotted in, or were they sort of sketched in?
That's actual surveyor's maps, and they were, it was surveyed in 2008, but you have to understand, each one of these red lines, if you look at these closely, and you have this map, if this is a blow-up of it, each one of these designated sections, AA through
transects,
GG,
right.
are surveyed transects. And if you look closely, the surveyed measurement spot elevations are shown. Now clearly, between the top of the bank and the bottom, where it's actively eroding, we weren't going to climb up and down. So it's a modeled rendition without sort of filling in the gaps, if you will, between certain spots, because if we were to do that, we might get a little bit more general representation, but it would be at the risk of causing more erosion and safety concerns. And also realize, you're looking at a photo that was taken, and the survey was done, the most recent survey was done months ago. So we can't pinpoint exactly every little escarpment or little collapse that may have occurred even before the survey was done, just because it's difficult to survey something like that. Not to mention the time element, things have changed. In fact, they changed since '08 to this recent time, but recently they've changed, like that tree that we were referencing. So we did our best to model it, but it is based on a survey, and those contour lines are 2-foot contours, and they're less than 3 or 4 feet apart. So that's pretty much a 1.5 or a 1. It varies 1 to 1 to 1.5 to 1 with variation in between. So we did the best we could.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, are we all set?
To clarify one point, I touched on it, but I don't know if I made the point clear at the end. And it was just to that issue about the tree that I sent pictures around, and I just wanted to be absolutely clear to the commission. At the time it was designed, we thought we could save it, but after that hard rainstorm, we're seeing the taproot, and generally we just don't feel like it could be saved. So I do think that tree, and I just wanted to be clear, that one pine tree that we gave you a picture of, and is shown on the plan. There were 2 trees when Mike surveyed it back in '08. One of them had already gone. We think this is close behind it, but we no longer think we could save that as part of the construction.
Okay, understood, thank
So
you.
your testimony is we might not see that again.
Yes.
No, we might not.
We got it.
Okay, so,
We already have a motion second.
oh, I'm sorry, that's right, we do.
It's your turn.
All right, all those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And finally, well, finally,
Finally.
in a wise, Michael and Brenda Doyle, 318 Acapesket Road, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to construct a wooden pier 70 feet long by 4 feet wide with a 6-foot by 16-foot terminal L shape. Install 13 10-inch diameter pilings, 4 6-inch by 6-inch posts, support timbers, decking, and railings. All right, Mike, before you get started, maybe you could ask those people to move down the hall. Thank you. Oh, this is for this one? Yes. Of course it is.
For the record again, Mike Porcelli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant, along with Pam Newbert. Pam did the shellfish survey and the associated report that's attached to the notice. Before I get too far, I know I'm in a little hot water for a staking situation. And there was a sign that was not at the site when, I know at least Commissioner Gladfelder and Jen were there.
That's even hotter water for that.
So the sign was placed there. I buy these signs, and I place the signs. I think you've seen them before. I hadn't been to the site. We staked this a week ago, and I hadn't been to the site, so I could have drove by prior to today, I guess, and looked to see. So I'm going to try to make that. I'm going to try to do that. It's just sometimes the days get away from me. So I don't know how else to say it other than the coastal bank and the salt marsh weren't staked. They weren't. The crew was instructed to stake them. I went there today. I see them out there. So I don't know what to do about it. I don't want to make you. I at first thought, in talking to Jen, I'd continue it and stake it so you could go back. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't want to make you drive back through the traffic in the summer like Jen talked about. So
Betsy has a comment to make about this.
Sort of hat in hand here.
Right.
Don't know what else to do.
So here's the issue. I mean, I can go out and I know what the resources are, and we don't have to get distances for the resources for mitigation for this. But we have 2 new people on the board who would love to see how these things are delineated. And so, we get new people periodically, and so they should be.
And I'm happy.
And
to
Jen
meet
can tell
them
you when
there
it's hot,
and
when
show
I'm hot
them.
and sweaty, and I'm going to different sites, and it took me 6 times before I found this driveway.
Betsy and I kept driving in and out of the driveway, it was great.
So
But I get
probably
kinda
would have been
cranky.
less of a frustration if the sign were there, so.
Yes.
Exactly.
The signs really do help.
And the barrels weren't in front of the street number.
They used to be in bright orange.
Right.
And I really think we should go back to bright orange for Concom, because there's so many projects in town going on, whether it's for builders. I mean, you go buy signs, you think it's, Joe Jones Building Company, and yours just says Falmouth Engineering. Does it say for Concom?
But at least he usually
I
has
know.
signs.
He
Some
usually has
people
signs.
don't
It used
have
to
any
be
signs.
And he
big
usually,
orange ones.
and you and Holmes and McGrath usually have the DEP numbers out there.
Right.
But a big orange sign would be much more visible than the white. I mean, I know they're attractive, but it used to be they had to be orange. They had to be 12 inches by 12 inches on an orange stake with a ribbon so that we could see them when we went by. And I know a lot of people don't want to bring attention that they're having a conservation meeting in their houses in the meeting, but
Well,
we need to see these things.
their abutters should all be aware, and personally, your signage, for the most part, I have no trouble with.
Right.
See, we have this incident, but I'm not complaining about your signage in
I'm going
general.
to try to put a stake with an orange ribbon next to the sign.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna
fine.
try and,
Just
That's
something
what BSS
attention getting, and
I tried to do
and
the
then the
math on
idea is good to
how
have
many
as well.
projects I presented, and I'll admit, there's probably been 5 to 10 times that something has been wrong with the staking since like the mid-'80s. Not that, it
You were
happens.
so optimistic, you were really patting yourself on
Okay,
the back.
this is consuming a lot of time. Why don't we just move on?
To the
And
project.
I appreciate your addressing.
I'll do
Thank
my
you.
best in the future. I appreciate your
Right.
consideration.
We may not be as nice in the future.
So the project, the property's at 318 Akabesket Road. Some of you may remember this project because there was a restoration project. The Doyles recently acquired the property, and the property came with some baggage. There was some non-compliance matters that they had to handle. Well, they handled them with the previous owner. There was monies escrowed, and the project was taken care of. And they did restore the buffer with the guidance of Mark Kasperzik and Jen. And they're full-time residents now. They live here year-round, and they explored the opportunities of a dock. We did the soundings, and Pam's office did the shellfish survey, and we discovered that we had adequate water depth, we did not have significant densities of shellfish, and we weren't in a V zone. So we felt as though we could proceed. So we prepared the plan and application. The dock is a typical, what you're used to seeing, 4-foot wide walkway with an L section. It's pile supported. The soundings are shown on the plan, and they demonstrate that there's more than 3 feet of water at low tide at the terminal end. There exists a gap in the salt marsh, and it aligns with the path that was left after the restoration project was done, and there's some railroad ties. Not railroad ties, there's some landscape timbers, and the concept is to put the access to the dock in that exact location on the slope and bridge over the lower part of the bank and elevate above the beach and adjoining salt marsh for protection of the resources, but also that will provide the public access that's mandated by Chapter 91. Through flow decking for sunlight penetration, entirely fixed structure with the end being less than 100 square, no greater than 100 square feet. It's actually 100 square feet. Pile spacing is 17 feet in the tidal zone. There's no pile penetration into the salt marsh. There's no post penetration into the salt marsh. The first two sections are the first section supported by 6 by 6s. It's pretty typical what you're used to seeing. We ask for seasonal water and electric to the dock. The harbor master commented. The report is in the file, and Pam's here to answer questions. I'm here to answer questions about the dock, and Pam's here to answer questions about the shellfish report.
All right, thank you. And we don't have a presentation unless we have questions, or do you?
No, I
Okay.
can present the results of the report, but if that's not needed, I'm happy to.
Okay, fine. I think we'll just move on to questions then. Jen?
Mike, I know why you did the L. I don't particularly care for them, but you did it to get, because you need that 25-foot for Chapter 91 off that property line, right? And I'd rather you have it in that opening, so you probably will see a condition that they can't have a boat on the inside, probably. Or
Yeah,
a
I'd expect
railing-
that.
Or a railing in there so they can't climb down into the boat. on
Sure.
that side. Okay, that's it.
All right, Mark.
Yeah, I have a question. I was out there, and it looks like, I don't know, there was inflatable and a couple dinghies, I think, lying around. And the concern I have is the dock is going to go right over the current break in the peat shelf. And as soon as the dock goes there, then they're gonna strip out another 6 feet to get the dinghies back and forth and get the inflatable out. So we're gonna lose some more peat shelf and marsh. What do we do about that? Is there anything we can do about that?
Well, what I've been told, but I don't know that you can 100% mitigate against that, but I've been told by the reason they're there is if they have the dock, they won't need to be there. They'd store things on the dock, or they would use the dock. They'd be less likely to be storing. They shouldn't be storing anything down there. So I've already talked to Mr. Doyle about that, because that wasn't a good message to send when commissioners were working on, especially when there wasn't a sign to the site. So the intention, I mean, certainly put a condition, and I've told him already that there should be nothing stored on the beach or salt marsh.
Or dragged up on it. And they
Yeah.
might have to walk around the new dock to get down to the beach.
Yeah.
So it's gonna strip out,
Sure.
back down a wider path going down actually to the beach, to the sand.
Right. The idea is, if they were to prevail and get the proper permits, it's very likely there'd be no need to even walk down to the beach. They would go launch off of the dock. I mean,
Dragging your dinghy up 4 feet or 5 feet.
I mean,
to get
the
on top of
dinghy's
dock is-
only there because they want to use the water.
Yeah,
And-
of course.
And the dock is going to allow them to better use the water. I mean, a condition is certainly appropriate, absolutely. If not, if you wanted to go further with a letter or some stronger.
Is there a reason why someone would choose to use a fixed dock instead of a float?
Well, there's two reasons. There's no moving parts. It's
Yeah.
built and it's it's more stable. And the commission prefers fixed because of the shadowing of the bottom. Floats can get closer to the substrate.
Right.
You need deeper water for a float.
Flat.
Yeah.
Just the float's a lot easier to get on and off of with an inflatable.
That's
that's
the
too bad.
balance, but, you know, you have to balance the interests.
That's the only question I have, thank you.
Okay, Steve.
No questions.
Janie.
Is the previously permitted work done,
Yes,
completed?
completely
I
done, and
think
a
you said that.
certificate of compliance has been
Thank you.
issued, yeah.
Nothing else?
Okay, that's it.
I just want to confirm, because we had this question too, that the terminus, the landward terminus of the dock is in the middle of the existing path.
Yeah, I saw the stake in the bayberry bush. I took a picture. I removed the stake. I put it in the middle of the path, and I drove it in, and I told the Doyles, we're not going to cut a bush when we can just shift the entry. It's intended to go on to the path.
Okay, and my other question is, if for some reason they did want access down, couldn't potentially they have a staircase down? So at some later point, if they want to be able to get down, if things
Right.
drop off the dock and they have to get down to pick them up.
Staff is hoping that marsh regenerates once that dock goes in.
Yeah, I thought about that too, and maybe possibly they'd come back on this side for an amendment. I haven't spoken to him about that detail.
Yeah, I mean,
but-
they don't need it now, but
Right.
there's, I think that that potential always exists.
Yeah, it'd be a removable section of a set of stairs,
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
ladder even.
Yeah,
A ladder.
yeah, or a ladder, yeah.
All set?
Yep, that's all.
All right,
The-
Lori?
I don't think I would encourage any steps or anybody to go down there, because whether, it's not if they drop something, they're just gonna go down and use it. And once you build steps, they will come.
Well, he
So-
said a ladder, maybe that's the.
Maybe that's it. Mike, where, you didn't put the mooring field on the plan.
I didn't put the mooring field on the.
Oh, you didn't.
Oh, you're right, I didn't.
And I'm with Jen on this one, I think there should be railings all the way down.
The
So
mooring
there-
field is intended to be here.
Like in
I
the
know where it's
revised
intended,
plan.
but it's gonna be on the
Yeah,
plan.
I know, and I'll give
Yeah.
you a revised
I know.
plan.
We've been doing this a while, we know where it is, but it needs to be on the plan.
But our new commissioners don't know where it is.
I know.
so-
Yes, and the mooring field is just so you know where the boat is going to be docked. This is very ambiguous, because that's why Jen was concerned where the long end run is. What they end up mini marinas, because then you're legally only supposed to put the boat at the end. And when we go there in 3 years, we're going to find 13 boats tied along that side.
Yeah, great.
So that's why we want the mooring field, because then at least we can enforce it, if it's
Thank you.
there. And anyway, that was that, and I'm your creative 6.3 decking. I'm
Yes.
sure the builders are gonna love that waste.
6 foot 3 inches.
6'3" inches.
That's right, exactly 100
Yep,
square feet.
okay, right there. And I do hope the marsh grows back. Oh, the erosion from the walkway going down. Are you gonna make sure that does not happen?
Or, you mean where the steps go
Yeah,
down
where the
at
steps go
beach?
down.
I noticed a little bit of undermining there too.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like us to offer some solution to stabilize that, I can come
You could put
back.
some planting.
Or,
Well, you could.
I mean, once the dock's built, you could replant under there.
Because with the traffic building that, it's gonna be trash.
I'm happy to make that a condition.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
It
thank you.
makes sense, I noticed it too. In fact, the last step is a little
A
loose.
little loose.
Yep.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I wouldn't pull the steps up, because now you're exposing more, but I would plant and stabilize that one area.
Thank you.
I have to say, when
So
I saw
some
the
invasive weeds in there, they'll grow.
when I saw the 6 feet 3 inches, I thought, that takes so long. Okay, Peter,
I found it a location, and,
You got any problem?
correct.
Well, I should probably go out on site visits with you.
Well, I saw
next
the
time.
mailbox on the other side of the street with the number.
I did too, I saw it 3 times.
I have driven by
But
a
no,
lot.
no
It's
questions.
318.
No
But you found
questions.
okay, let's continue, thanks.
No questions, other than I went by twice.
Okay, so So I'm going to guess that message is well received.
You're the smartest navigation.
And of all the sites, this is
Thoroughly
one of the harder ones to find. And of course,
Neon signs.
Right. Yeah, you can't blame the weather.
Yeah, and lit at night.
I think we are finished.
We're ready to close the hearing and take it under advisement,
Second.
because we know that Mike is going to get the revised plan in.
Notes on replanting underneath the dock and a mowing field.
And if you don't have it, you will never get another one.
If you don't have it
If you don't have the revised plan
in, if we go to vote this and we don't see the revised plan,
in, it'll be a procedural denial. I've been away. I'm cranky.
And she's back.
she's
She doesn't want to be.
All right, let's
you were
vote.
missed. You were missed.
I'm sure I was.
All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll call tomorrow.
Good. Yes. And then there's the, just a reminder, I guess I can't say it because it's a different hearing, but public road.
public road. Public road,
Through
Great
Minor.
Bay Street is public road, or?
Want a revised plan for that?
Great Bay.
Okay.
All right, moving along. Vote orders of conditions. 15 Pennsylvania Avenue, Luckner. Thank you, good night.
Peter, Steve, Judy, Betsy, Knight, Mary, Kevin. Mary, Kevin. So no Mark, no more.
So I have a suggestion.
This one I have to, what?
My suggestion is, why don't we move on to the other business so that when we get orders of conditions that these people aren't on, that they can
Yeah,
go
we can
home.
do that.
All right, that's fine with me. All right, so we're going to table the order of conditions, move to other business, request for a letter of recommendation for Falmouth Rod and Gun Club bog restoration project to various funding agencies.
Yes, the Falmouth Rod and Gun Club, their vice president, Dan Murphy, came to the office the other day and wanted to know if the board would write a letter of recommendation for the Rod and Gun Club to the various funding agencies they need to approach for the restoration of the,
Charles River.
is it Farley Bog?
Farley Bog,
yes,
the Farley Bog.
But it's more than just
Yeah,
a Charlie
Charles
Bog.
River,
Right.
yeah, it's the Charles River. I said I would bring it to the board. Now, they don't have a specific funding agency in mind right now.
Yes, they do.
Well, I don't know that.
CPC.
Okay, but I'm not aware of that right now, or other additional funding agencies.
Well, I've
going
been also asked, so that's why I had no this
Yeah,
information.
so we can write a letter to the CPC, that's fine, but I think they also want a letter going forward where they have to approach different agencies. So what I can do is let them know that every time they would like a letter of recommendation, we'd be willing to write one for them as long as they give me the funding agency information, or we can just write them a generic one.
Yeah, why can't you just do a general one? to
I
support the
can, I just,
project?
that was really up to you, but usually we address, usually when there's a letter of
Yeah.
recommendation, we address the funding agency
Right.
and everything like that. So it was up to you guys, we can do it either way.
So this would have to be redated each time, but what about signing? Does it have to be signed each time? I think that,
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
we
that's a
could
good
write it
idea,
and we
that
can
we
just
don't
have
just
you come and
completely
sign
give
it.
them
Carte blanche.
carte
Yeah.
blanche.
No, I think they should have to ask each time
Yes,
they have a
right.
grant. And you should have a general.
We should have one
form,
ready to
and
go.
you just
Boilerplate.
modify it. It should be to whoever the funding agency
So
is.
you want them to come and approach you every time they
No,
want
just
No.
request.
Just, I would be satisfied for them to come to the administrator,
let me know,
request
and then
it,
I'll write
and then
the letter.
we'll
Yeah,
deal with
okay.
it
That's what I was
administratively.
wondering. I didn't want them to have to come back to
No,
the agenda item every time they wanted to.
Right.
No.
That would,
Okay, that's
it would be
fine.
two
Okay.
people making sure that they're comfortable with
Yeah,
each
but
request.
just
That's fine.
a generic letter
Yes.
that can
Yeah.
be modified to
Modified
fit
for each
whoever.
funding
Exactly.
agency. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say
Aye.
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 Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
I did.
Discussion of Chapter
Steve.
91 license at 4 Nichols Road, and, boy.
Oh,
Take
yeah,
it
so
away.
basically, what is going on at 4 Nichols Road is the board heard the project to extend, they have the order of conditions back in the late 80s for the seasonal dock. They came to the board to have after the hearing, the extension from the seasonal dock onto the seawall. The board ultimately denied that. The McDowers took it at that time and decided to install the seasonal dock. They had the order of conditions on, and install the dock in its approved, licensed, and order of conditions location.
Just to remind people, this is the one next to the public landing.
Yeah, this is the one
Exactly.
next to the public landing. We got some complaints and concerns from the abutters, and we reached out to DEP to get some clarification on whether or not the order of conditions was still valid, even though it hadn't been acted upon for a number of years. I got conflicting opinions from DEP on that, so that is going to be up to the board of whether or not to allow the dock to still be installed under your order of conditions. There's a couple of different ways the board can approach that. I'll stay on that track for a minute. One is that we could ask the applicant to request a certificate of compliance, which hasn't been done, and then write in the certificate of compliance that they're allowed to install this dock year after year. Or two, you can say that, you don't believe it should be installed, and, they would have to remove it. They also have to go or they also had the issue of the Chapter 91. Now, the Chapter 91 has an abandonment, for lack of a better term, I'm sure Michael will correct me, clause within their regulations. It is DEP's opinion at this time that the dock does not have a valid Chapter 91 license. The DEP told the applicant not to install the dock. It was in an email, it's in your record. The applicant chose to, on advice of their counsel, chose to install the dock anyway. The DEP had sent them a letter or an email asking them not to install the dock before they had had a chance to talk to their counsel. The applicant went and installed it that weekend.
This is a 5-year, nothing's there for 5 years?
It's something like that. I don't know the specifics. So
It's not our
we got a call. We had to, of course, go down, document it, and let DEP know the dock is installed. They have now sent a letter to the applicant requiring its removal. So DEP, in my exchange with them, wanted to know the position of this board. So I said that I would put it on your agenda and that we would discuss it. The board, I said, will act only upon the Wetlands Protection Act, and
Right.
whether or not you feel that the order of conditions is still valid, but that you'll probably side with DEP, and if DEP's opinion that this does not have a valid Chapter 91 license, that you will consider it an unlicensed dock, and will back DEP up with the requiring its removal until they obtain that license.
Yes, I can,
Did I summarize it?
Yeah, you did.
My recollection about this, I recall it, it wasn't that long ago, but I also recall not being entirely comfortable with the historical record with respect to where the dock was originally located. So there's that matter too, and quite a few neighbors that testified about that. It's just a minimum. Betsy?
Don't our order of conditions say that all other
All of the
permits and licenses must be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So they didn't get, you have to remember, you can get up, Mike, but they didn't get the platform going. The board didn't allow that, so. they chose to install the dock in the configuration and footprint of the order of conditions that was issued in the 80s.
In the license.
Well, the
It's-
license is not valid
Valid.
according to DEP.
The old license.
The old license, yeah.
Okay.
The non-existent.
I'm not here to persuade you either way. I'm here to give you new information.
Okay, thank you.
That's hot off the presses, and that is that there's been a dialogue with DEP. This is Division of Wetlands and Waterways.
You mean the applicant and DEP?
Yes. The applicant hired counsel who has been in contact with DEP. In fact, there's going to be a response letter with supporting documents justifying why the Chapter 91 license is still valid, and your office is copied on it. And I think it's going out tomorrow or Friday. So
the implication would, to that, we might want to delay our decision.
well, that's up to you folks.
Yeah,
I just wanted to let you know, there's a question about this matter of abandonment and how it's defined, and that's what there's not having a structure in the water for 5 years or more, and abandonment, they go together. It's not one or the other. Abandonment is a term, you'd have to look at definitions to understand really what it means. It doesn't mean just because you may not have abandoned something if you didn't put it in for 5 years. There may be extenuating circumstances. Right. So that's the argument. I mean, you're going to get a copy tomorrow, whenever it's filed. They're going back and forth. Okay. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Do you want to just put it, do you want to just hold it?
Yes,
hold off on
I would like
discussion
to
until?
continue this till a
Because
more
like I said, you can handle your
fruitful
order of
time.
conditions. I've got differing opinions from DEP on whether or not it's their opinion that the order of
Whether it's
conditions is
valid.
still valid.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the discussion you're going to have.
Let's see where things go
Okay.
for a little while. Thank you.
So we'll just kind of hold off.
We'll hold off on that. All right, so now we're back to our orders of conditions.
Okay.
15 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, let me see. I mean, you can't release everybody until I release.
Just me. I know, I haven't been here. I haven't been here a year. I haven't been here for a year.
Mark, you can go home. Don't say you haven't been here for a year.
Betsy said I was
Mark,
not for a
you can
year.
go home still.
It's just how much she misses us when she's not here. It feels like it.
Feels like
All
a
right,
year.
so 15 Pennsylvania, I did get a clarification from Matt Costa, and he profusely apologized when I asked about whether or not it was going to be breakaway panels, open pilings, or anything. He did say it's going to be on pilings, that the bottom floor is not going to be enclosed. Like, remember we had the discussion of flood panels?
Yeah, that was the only
Yeah.
big issue.
Right. That was the
And
only big issue, but
I believe I printed his email and put it in the file. I believe.
Oh,
Let me
do I
see.
have it here?
I might. It's over on, yeah, sorry.
Oh, you all right?
I'm fine, I just got caught on you, that's all.
I lost my agenda.
Pennsylvania Avenue.
15.
yes.
Pennsylvania Avenue.
Right here. Apparently I didn't. I should've.
But you saw it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, well,
And
we believe you.
So, he was mistaken when he,
Thought there were going to be breakaway panels.
All right.
yeah,
So that's good news. And, yeah, I don't recall any other issues. Does anybody else?
No.
The AC and the generator need to
Right.
be elevated and out of the zone if applicable.
You hearing that, Jen? He knows
hang on,
that.
I'm gonna try to find his,
He needs to write the order. Write notes, so she can write the order.
okay, what was it? AC and
Generator need to be elevated.
generator need to be elevated.
I asked them that.
Yeah, you did. Well, let me try, I'll
Definitely
find his email real quick.
Yeah,
When did
no.
we hear this?
As long as he knows that.
The second.
Oh, did we second? Did we vote? No, we didn't because,
We don't even have a motion, yeah.
We believe you. You don't have to look.
I want to.
Unless you've been having
I'm just like
hallucinations
trying
or
to find
something.
it. No, I'm not. But I want to make sure I got the language right.
English, please.
I'm slow sometimes.
This is the one, the rain.
Okay, apparently, Blake, I jumped from July 19th on my emails to
I think we should,
August 9th, so.
I think we should assume that what you're
Yeah.
saying is correct, and if it,
Yeah,
if
so anyway, there
if it
are- yeah.
has disappeared, we will ask him to resend his email.
Yeah, no, I have it downstairs, I just don't have it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's fine. But other than that, he did send an email response.
Hi, Maury. Thanks for
apologizing-
visiting.
Bye, Maury. Apologizing to the board and re-clarifying what was beneath the structure.
That-
So there
that's
aren't gonna be solid
Thank
walls
you.
with flood vents.
fine.
Okay?
Okay, and you got the thing about the AC.
AC is getting ready to be
Not pads, but.
Tried to tell me
Yeah.
there was a
Okay,
crawl
so-
space underneath.
Do we have a motion?
I move that
Second.
we accept. As discussed.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Lot 76, Simplewisset Road, Najarian.
This is all we needed, Jamie,
I
on
have something to say.
Say again?
that river then.
This was the enforcement order.
Steve, Jamie, Betsy, and Mary, this is the big enforcement order where they we have a couple issues we have to talk about. One is, does the board agree with the delineation of the coastal bank? If you take the very technical delineation of the coastal bank, it has that little finger projection in. Or do you take Leslie's interpretation of that bank where that finger projection isn't going to add any more flood control or storm damage prevention than the linear part of the bank? And then two, whether or not staff feels that the plant should go in prior to construction, and the applicant is requesting not to do that, to do the planting.
Yeah, but he also offered to put up a bond, so,
Yeah,
I mean, well,
Well, they didn't want to put up a bond.
I don't believe they want to put up a bond either, but
They didn't.
if you don't have them put the plants in prior to
No,
construction,
we-
you should require the bond.
I have
Yes,
another- I have more of an issue with the planting, just beyond, way beyond
Go
that.
ahead.
So, well, let's do the coastal bank issue first.
Yeah,
I thought we already talked about that.
Yeah,
We
we did.
accepted
I'm for the
their,
functional definition myself.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fine.
Leslie's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just need to make sure you guys
Right.
Yeah.
are fine with it.
I have a big problem with, this is an egregious enforcement that hasn't been dealt with for years and years and years, since before I was on in the early 2000s. And despite the testimony that they didn't find any tree stumps, there are oaks all over where they're going to put the house. Presumably, and there are oaks down below where it was cleared. So presumably, between the two, there were oaks.
There were oaks.
And all they're suggesting, and they're taking down 180 inches, 100 or 181 inches, caliper inches, 13 or 14 trees, and they're offering 13 2-inch trees, Tupelos.
Yeah.
Now, has anybody heard of Tupelo forests? You've heard of oak forests, you've heard of pine forests.
Cedar groves.
Cedar groves,
they're trendsetters.
I guess so. Well, I don't
This is
mind,
not a good trend, though.
I don't mind, I don't
Type of
mind,
oak.
I don't mind 13 Tupelos, but I think there should be
More oaks.
a generous amount of oaks as well.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
And
fine.
we did discuss the caliper inch,
Yes, we did.
you know, as a requirement, so I think we should put that
Yeah,
in there.
well, I don't know that we nailed it down. I don't think we're going to require 181.
Well, no, it's between 13 trees and 181.
Yeah.
But I'd say at least, they can do the 13 Tupelos, but a
And the
dozen
13
oaks.
Tupelos are over, what's the word I used?
Right, and I also don't
Well, that's
agree,
another issue,
Yeah,
is
if you
where-
have small, if you start out with, 1.5 or 2-inch oaks, they're going to adapt to the climate.
Mhm.
So it should cover that whole area.
Okay, so what do you want me to write?
12 oaks, 13 tupelos?
So you want 12
Evenly
additional,
spaced.
12 additional
Evenly spaced.
12 additional oaks?
Yes.
Yes.
You want 13 additional tupelos?
No,
that's their
That's
proposal.
what they
Their proposal.
proposed, yeah. 12
And they should be
additional
spread evenly.
Orchis, distributed evenly.
And then a bond.
Yes.
Evenly
I
across property.
Personally, I think we could leave the issue of deciding between one or the other to them, but we should set them a bond amount.
No, the bond
Or-
amount is set on the, bond amounts
Oh, with
usually
estimates
are-
presented?
They have to give us a quote for the work, a quote
Right.
for the plant,
Right.
and a quote for 10% replacement. The town, as a practice, adds 25% to that, and it is a cash bond.
Okay.
Maybe they don't take the town into insurance.
All right. Does anybody object to the idea of leaving that decision, that choice up to them, as long as it's specified in the order?
The bond?
As to whether they plant first or they offer a bond?
I can
Well,
write
we-
it either way. I
Right.
can write both, that the plants have to go in prior to construction, or the applicant has the choice of posting a bond.
That's what I'm proposing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Second.
No.
I'm just saying I support that proposal.
I thought you were making a motion.
I was not.
You can now.
There's a really weird vibe.
I make a motion to accept the order of conditions
Thank
as
you.
discussed.
Yes, second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
I have to get my
All right.
language right.
46 Rivers End Road, Palmquist.
See what you're dealing with, right?
I can't look that way.
Hang on, I'm getting
Like
it.
Jen.
So, the board will be,
Yeah.
I have some good news and not so good news. I spoke
So we're done with
with the
this.
neighbor.
Okay.
Oh.
We need a quorum.
We need a quorum.
Susan,
Where are we?
is it the same four
Steve.
people?
46 Rivers End.
Steve, Jamie, Betsy, Mary, Peter. I spoke with the neighbor that we hadn't heard from. The neighbor said,
Oh, yes.
the neighbor said she was fine with it. I told the neighbor, I need it in writing, because this is just me saying that, I spoke to you and you said it's okay, you can come back in 3 weeks.
But I
and
can
say,
confirm that he called and wanted to speak to you. Because I was there when he called.
He did say it was okay. I asked him to put it in writing and please let me know. That was not done.
Did you hear both sides of the phone conversation? I bet you didn't.
So unfortunately,
Well, I didn't, but I trust
did
her.
speak with the
I
neighbor
trust her also.
regarding, Peter, the issue that you and I discussed
Yeah.
about the dock being too
Right.
close and
Yeah.
not being,
10 feet.
10 feet from the property boundary. The neighbor was fine. They are concerned about some erosion and everything, but that'll be addressed later. And unfortunately, the gentleman did not send me anything. So,
You could always write an
You know-
affidavit. We know about affidavits.
I know this is, a legal matter. It
yeah.
it involves the neighbor's property. How do we know that was the neighbor who called?
Aha.
I don't.
I
really
frankly
don't.
have a problem
Hence
with
the
the
no
phone
way.
call.
Honestly, my brain doesn't work like that. That thought never
very
occurred to me until this
suspicious.
minute.
I mean, we're authorizing work on somebody's property who hasn't asked us for the authorization.
No, it's
And,
not, we're not authorizing work on this property.
well,
It's just
okay,
less than
it's-
10
it's
feet.
Less than 10 feet from
Do
his
we have
property.
less
any
than 10
document?
feet.
And it's not his property,
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
the
extended
state property,
property
it's
line.
state property, yes, that's
Do we have
all
any
true.
documentation that, when they asked the abutter for permission?
Yeah, we have the certified voters list the certified letters that they sent, the green cards. and
Okay, so
everything.
does that cover us enough that they then can't come back and say,
No, because they're supposed to have permission.
You're supposed to have
Written
permission.
permission from the property.
so by not responding, it's not permission?
Unless we got an email, Courtney is very, very good, unless we got an email and she put it in the file, which she would have.
I know the clock is running and we, the idea of issuing a denial doesn't make me very happy, but I think we might have to do that. And then have them come right back when they get a letter. You told the man to send the letter, correct?
I did. I did tell him.
And this is,
Well, well, my
Please, sir,
question
we
is,
need
you know,
this letter.
did the applicant show diligent effort to get this letter? And then you can't hold people's hands.
Well, if
And I'm not saying
if we
that-
didn't have the
They did send
required letter
certified.
from Greg Fraser, we wouldn't approve it. That's a requirement. No matter,
well, we've waived
The harbor
that.
master.
If people
Right.
have tried to do it and haven't gotten it.
have we?
Yes, sometimes we haven't gotten what we're supposed to get from other town people.
Right.
What do you want to do, guys?
Is it possible to postpone this any further?
We have to vote.
Is it,
I say we have to put a condition
yeah,
that until there's something written in the record
Thank
giving
you.
permission, then this project can't be done
What-
until there's written permission from the property owner in the record.
Thank you.
it would be in the order of conditions?
Yep,
Yes,
we're doing it
right,
right now. There'll be a
So
special
we-
condition, and the dock shall not be constructed until the Conservation Commission is in receipt of written permission from the neighbor.
Yeah.
Right, so if they come and
That'll
ask,
work, because other than that,
Permissions.
it's fine.
Yeah.
they
It's the only issue.
ask permission to start, they have to come to you, right? They have to give a 10-day start work.
Okay, good, thank you, Bessie. So,
Good job.
motion?
Is that your motion?
That's so so Peter's gonna make the motion to accept
Go,
this discussed,
Peter.
right?
Actually, to issue the order as discussed.
Issue the order is discussed.
I make the motion to issue the order.
Got that, Susan?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thanks. Okay, 150 Westwood Road, Riftwood Irrevocable Trust.
Quorum on this one is Kevin, Steve, wait a minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Courtney, no, sorry, Peter, Mary, Betsy, Jamie, Steve, Kevin.
No, the revised plan, no.
Peter, Mary, Betsy,
Oh, right,
Jamie,
right.
Steve, Kevin. Rocks, fire pit, spa, other fire pit, onto Shoreway, Angry Butter, move the trees over.
Right.
Right, other than that, the
Move
project
Rocky
was,
Toilet.
they
Yep.
did all that.
Yeah, yeah,
Plantings were fine.
I think we nailed everything down.
Okay.
I move we accept as discussed.
Second.
All those in favor say
Aye.
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 Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Wait,
All those in favor say aye.
Somebody said wait.
no, do we do?
Second.
We did simple with it. Okay,
Yes.
sorry. My files got out of order.
Spoil sport. We were in the middle of voting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
I have
We're
second.
adjourned.